Sergei, an experienced police officer, was always proud of his service and honesty. He was used to a strict routine and clarity in his life. At work, he was always an example for his colleagues, and at home, a loving husband and father. His wife, Natalia, seemed like an ideal life partner, a caring mother to their son, Maxim. They lived together for many years, and Sergei never doubted her fidelity. But one evening, everything changed. Sergei, as usual, was looking through the documents of prisoners recently released from prison. He needed to verify the information for the report. Suddenly, his gaze stopped on one name, Igor Sokolov. This name seemed familiar to him, and he decided to look into the case in more detail. Igor Sokolov was convicted of theft and was serving time in a local prison. Sergei opened the list of visitors who visited Sokolov, and his heart sank when he saw Natalia's name among them. He could not believe his eyes and looked through the data again. But the name and surname matched. His wife really did visit Sokolov. At first, Sergei thought it was a mistake. He decided to check additional data. Dates of visits, time of visits. Everything matched. Natalia visited Sokolov every month for a year. Sergei could not find an explanation for this fact. Thousands of questions were spinning in his head. Why did she do this? How long did this last? What was she hiding? Sergei felt like his world was collapsing. He never thought that Natalia could be involved in something like this. He tried to find a rational explanation for her visits, but only the worst assumptions came to mind. He decided not to tell anyone about his discovery and continued working, trying not to reveal his feelings. In the evening, when he returned home, he looked at Natalia with different eyes. She seemed to him a stranger, hiding secrets that he had only just begun to reveal. Sergei could not sleep all night. He thought about how to approach Natalia and ask about her visits to prison. But he knew it wouldn't be easy. The next day, he felt even more depressed and decided to conduct his own investigation to find out the whole truth. Sergei called his friend who worked at the prison and asked him to provide more detailed information about Natalia's visits. The friend, realizing the seriousness of the situation, agreed to help. A few days later, Sergei received copies of all the records and saw that Natalia not only visited Sokolov, but spent a lot of time with him. This discovery was a real blow to Sergei. He felt betrayed and humiliated. His wife, his Natalia, with whom he had lived for so many years, was hiding something so important from him. Sergei knew that he had to figure out this situation and make decisions that would change their lives forever. Sergei knew that further delay would only make his condition worse. He knew that the moment had come to find out the whole truth. Returning home from work, he found Natalia in the kitchen preparing dinner. She greeted him with a smile, but Sergei could not return her smile. Emotions were seething inside him: pain, anger, disappointment. "Natasha, we need to talk," Sergei said, trying to keep his voice calm. Natalia turned around and noticed the tension on his face. "What happened, Seryozha? You look tired." Sergei took a deep breath and sat down at the table. He took copies of her visit notes out of his pocket and placed them in front of her. "Can you explain this to me?" His voice trembled with suppressed anger. Natalia looked at the documents and turned pale. Her hands began to shake and she sank into the chair opposite. "Seryozha, I can explain everything." "Explain what?" Sergei interrupted her. "Why did you visit Sokolov? Why didn't you tell me?" She sighed, looking down. "Igor, he was my classmate. We were friends at school, and then he got into trouble. When I found out he was in prison, I felt sorry for him. I decided to help him." "And you thought the best way to help was to visit him behind my back?" Sergei couldn't hide the sarcasm in his voice. Natalia tried to explain. "I didn't want you to worry. You were always against me communicating with him. I thought I could help him get back on the right path." Sergei felt his anger growing. He stood up, not taking his eyes off Natalia. "And how long have you been hiding this? How many times have you lied to me?" Natalia started to cry, but Sergei wasn't going to stop. "I've always trusted you, Natasha. I never thought you were capable of such betrayal, and not only to me, but to our son as well." She sobbed, trying to find the words, but she couldn't say anything. Sergei continued. You don't understand what this means to me. You broke our trust. You destroyed our family. He couldn't hold back his emotions any longer and left the kitchen. Thoughts about how to deal with this betrayal were spinning in his head. Sergei understood that he had to make serious decisions, and he couldn't. He knew that for his son's sake, he had to be strong and fair. Sergei returned downstairs and found Natalia still sitting at the table, lost in her thoughts. He approached her and said, "I'll give you time to think, but know one thing. Our future depends on what you do next." Natalia was silent, and Sergei realized that this conversation was only the beginning of a long road to restoring or destroying their family. Sergei knew that he needed to understand the situation to the end in order to understand how to proceed. He decided to use his professional skills to conduct his own investigation. He could not rely only on Natalia's words. Too much was at stake. The first thing Sergei did was check the CCTV footage from the prison where Sokolov was serving time. He knew that he had access to this data and hoped to find something that would shed light on the situation. Looking through the records, he noticed that Natalia did indeed visit Sokolov often. Their meetings took place mainly on Sundays, when she had more free time. She came with packages that could contain food or other items. Next, Sergei decided to check Natalia's phone. He understood that this was an invasion of her privacy, but he had no other options. Sergei found many messages from Igor Sokolov in her phone. In them, they discussed everything, from everyday matters to intimate moments. One message in particular caught his attention. "I'll be out soon, and we can be together." Sergei felt a cold wave rush through his body. This message confirmed his worst fears. The situation went beyond simple meetings. This was betrayal. To find out more, Sergei decided to talk to colleagues who worked with Sokolov in prison. He began asking them about the prisoner's behavior, his visits, and any oddities that could attract attention. One of the guards told Sergei that Igor often bragged about his connections outside and that he had a special guest who visited him regularly. These words only confirmed Sergei's suspicions. He continued his investigation, collecting all possible evidence. Looking through documents and records, he discovered that Natalia used fake names when visiting Igor to hide her identity. This made the situation even worse. Sergei also decided to meet Igor in person. He knew it would not be easy, but he needed to hear the truth firsthand. Having received permission to visit, Sergei went to the prison. When he entered the visiting room, Igor was already sitting there, looking confident and even impudent. "Hello, Igor," Sergei said, sitting down opposite. "I have a few questions for you." Igor looked at him with a grin. "Sergei, it's been a while. What brought you here?" "I want to know the truth about your relationship with my wife," Sergei answered, trying to keep his voice calm. Igor grinned even wider. "You know everything yourself, Seryozha. Your wife loves me. She came to me every time she could. We are planning a future together." Igor's words cut Sergei like a knife. He tried to keep his cool, but inside, everything was boiling. "You don't understand that you destroyed my family," Sergei said. Igor shrugged. "She made her own choice. We love each other. You need to come to terms with it." Sergei stood up, feeling that he could no longer stand this man. "I will not let you destroy everything I have. You will pay for this." Igor only grinned in response. Sergei left the room, feeling empty but determined. He realized that he had to finish his investigation and find a way to protect his family from this man. Sergei knew that he couldn't just leave this situation like that. He had to do something to show Natalia and Igor that they couldn't ruin his life with impunity. He began planning his revenge, thinking through every step. Sergei's first step was to gather all the evidence he had. He copied Natalia and Igor's correspondence, CCTV footage, and other materials confirming her visits to prison. He saved this evidence in several places to make sure it wouldn't disappear. Sergei's next step was to turn to his colleagues in law enforcement. He explained the situation to them and asked for help. They understood his pain and anger, so they agreed to help him with this matter. Together, they developed a plan to draw attention to Igor's criminal activity and his connection with Natalia. Sergei decided to act quickly and decisively. He knew that Igor would soon be released, and he had to make it before that moment. They came up with a plan that included installing hidden cameras in the places where Igor and Natalia met to record their conversations and actions. When Igor was released from prison, Sergei and his team were ready. They followed his every move, collecting additional evidence. Soon, they managed to record several meetings between Igor and Natalia, where they discussed their plans and relationships.